Hey guys, GWS here for video titled How to Go on Offense for Conservatives and Republicans from a non-conservative. And the reason why I want to explain this is simple. Right now is a time in our history where Republicans and conservatives in general have to win. I say that as more of a libertarian leaner. I'm not a Republican. I'm barely more of a fan of Republicans than I am Democrats because of the hypocrisy. But Democrats are going to ruin this country. But here's a problem with conservatives, and this goes back to the Roseanne thing, which, to clarify, Roseanne said absolutely nothing wrong. Like, you can call somebody an ape, even if they identify as black. Like, you look at Valerie Jarrett, like, nothing about her is dark-skinned. But, okay. You want to call her African American or Afro, whatever. That's up to you. But anyhow, the point is, conservatives using reactionary logic, using using logic, calling liberals hypocrites, being the one to punch back instead of punch first, is a problem. Conservatives, if they are going to win, and they have to win, or this country's going to go down fast, they have to go on the offense. And I want to present to you a clinic of doing that by a feminist that I'm debating. Let me see if she blocked me. I'm willing to bet she did. It doesn't look like she did. Nope, surprisingly, she hasn't blocked me yet. Because, this is a clinic. So let me go to my tweets here. This is my new Twitter because my other one got blocked. I can't imagine this one's going to last that long either. Um, so I'd like to get this from her perspective, assuming she doesn't. She may not block me now. I'm not sure, but okay. This is Okay, see, yeah, she didn't even respond to me direct. Well, she retweeted me. Okay, yeah, yeah. Notice how she is pretty wired up, and she's on the defensive. Look at her attitude here. He comes up with yet another straw man, where he had to guide the conversation away from the economic disaster of red states. He leaned on patriarchy, which I obviously destroyed with facts. Now he's back to what about Chicagoism? Is there a term for conservatives in Chicago? Obsession. Notice the defense that, like, she's trying to punch back, because see, this is what Democrats are good at. They're good at hitting first, and oftentimes they're good at even punching back. But this is like a weak sauce punchback. She is on the defensive. Look at this one. The guy is finished with me and my stupidity, but he's obsessed with making me believe he's a developer. Note that I only mentioned I was a developer one time. Looking out for women. He's now ditched He's now ditch tantrum is in full fury mode. Men of Twitter, this is what women deal with. He said he's done, and now he'll stalk me for days. Um, yeah, see, I think I made my point. Yeah, see, and this is like what you could get him to do too, which is typical name calling, like typical of a name calling Neanderthal like yourself, which is not my exact quote, I don't believe. Seriously, though, I've promised to be nicer to non Trump conservatives. So some tips: don't make economic arguments for the right when red states receive most of the welfare in federal dollars. Yeah, see, it's very highly enraged because, see, this is how you go on offense. And I'm sure some of you have read. I'm not going to read these that I've posted, but basically, this was pertaining to like like she was saying, Well, let me go back up here. This is actually a pretty good bit of the conversation. Let's go up here. Um, okay, well, this goes way up, doesn't it? All this is part of the beginning. So yeah, the conversation began cordially, um, where she talked about red states receiving welfare, which is a fact-based discussion at first. It was fairly productive, saying where she's lived and all that. But it turned sour once, yeah, this is about where it turned sour. Like, where she kept trying to force the women are better than men thing on me. And then, like, it's not here, but the thing I hit back with is, like, you're talking about women have more ability. That is a blanket term. Like, what do you mean by ability? There are thousands upon thousands of different skills. And then I asked, um like, are you assuming women are better sumo wrestlers than men are? you know like, just to inject humor. And then I get a very angry response, like, I don't know if I'll see it here, but basically, like, what economy is based on, like, is the worldwide economy based on sumo wrestling, you idiot? And then I respond to her by saying that, the economy isn't based on any one thing. That's why there's many skills. And then down here is where we get into algorithms. Catch up, jackass. Women in the workplace are selected by hiring algorithms, not humans, because they ate lower risk, whatever that means. That's a gender problem for you boys, not a crime problem. And then I respond to this by saying, hiring algorithms, by the way, which are written by men who dominate the tech industry, developers such as myself. I'm not saying it makes men better than women at everything, namely that you ought to open up your eyes and realize that people are good at different things. So you see what I'm doing here is I'm claiming the moral high ground, right? Because that's what you have to do when you're discussing things with a liberal, especially one like this, because this isn't your typical burning supporting liberal. This is one fully on the Hillary feminism type of stuff. Like, women aren't just to be equal to men; women are better than men, right? So, and then this is where her tantrum, you know, go and notice, like, the only thing I called her was a Neanderthal because of her name calling. And yeah, I could have taken the high road with that, but, like, there are times when you do have to hit back. Like, you have to say, you are an unthinking person. Because, see, this is the liberal mirage that they're trying to present. They're trying to present themselves as good, as high moral people who are thinking people, who are better than you, make more money than you, are more successful than you, and they want to give that success out. And what you have to do is you have to break through that mirage. You can't let them have that high ground. And see, that this is what happens. Now, of course, this is just a repetition of her previous point. And then we got, well, I already showed that, but basically another thing I said was like, she's saying women have more ability, and then she goes to men have a higher violent crime rate. And I said, yeah, men have a higher violent crime rate. Does that make women better than men? No, because, see, that puts the burden of proof on them to explain how they are saying that one thing, one particular thing, makes one sex better than the other. And let's go through some more of this. And yeah, this is where she did the name calling. I don't think it'll show my tweet after. Oh, it might. Um, yeah, you didn't address the numbers provided. I explained to you that middle class folks and above are Trump supporters. I showed numbers to prove it, and you have no response except to use childish name calling, as is typical of a Neanderthal such as yourself. Enjoy your day, because she told me to chill. And so it's like, I think I've written one other tweet to her since then. Um, let's see. Well, wrote a couple actually, but yeah, and then see you get her on the defense too. Like she's saying it was racism, sexism, blah blah blah. I'm sure she would have thrown Russia in there if she were thinking, but I probably had her so flustered she couldn't even um, think about the Russia response. And I said, how about this? Come up with a better candidate than free trade loving corporate backroom deal candidate whose solution to big bank regulation is to tell them to cut it out. And you think it was racism? Maybe you ought to ask Bernie Sanders supporters about that one, because that puts what that it puts them on the defensive. Like they have to defend against members of their own party, and they have to address their own consensus, because now all of a sudden they're not working from a consensus, because like anti-racism, anti-sexism, that's a consensus they could work behind. But what you have to do is you got to split that apart, right? um and then she talks about free trade, and see, you get them out of this rabbit hole with their positions. Like all of a sudden they're not so liberal after all. And I don't know where this pro-slavery stuff came from. And then, like, she, they try to fluster with this, you're an icky person, go away. and it's, um, and it's like, I'll show. Well, I think you probably already saw the bombshell tweet, but I'll show it again, just to kind of parade in Paris, as they say. No, not pro-slavery. That's why I support anti-slave tariffs. That's the key there, because you are starkly putting them in a position where they have to defend themselves against the position they support. Like anti-slave tariffs against countries like Thailand and many Southeast Asian nations, where worker rights means suicide nets and slave wages. But since you support free trade, I guess you support rewarding that kind of behavior, allowing undercuts, and like tweet limit there. So I can't make the full rhetorical point. And see, here's the thing: it's like I'm not like the best impact writer. Okay, I do writing, but um, it's not but it's not going to sell any novels, basically. But it is an example that a more articulate person can use to go on offense. And this is my final tweet to her. Uh, let's see if I can get what this is in response to. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This is her saying for me to shoo a second time. Yuck, you're a lazy piece of shit. Typical shoe lazy man. Women at work over here. Go live with your mom and watch too much porn. You don't belong here. Be typical. Just don't shoot kids, okay? We have to remind you cons to stop that. And see, this is where you counterpunch, or I chose to do that. You could choose any of the methods, but basically the key is you're always on offense. You're never on defense. You're never having to say, like a conservative would say, no, I'm an exemplary human being. Conservatives do not do that. Look at the average conservative. They're nice folks and they're against bad things. No, that puts you on the defensive. So here's what you do. Like, you put them in a position. Like, yeah, while you're at it working in your cubicles answering phones for $9.50 an hour, please do what Republicans told you guys to do 50 years ago and stop segregating black folks. And then you post an article, and this article is more of an authoritative source. Like, okay, you're segregating black folks. It's one thing to say it and just run your mouth. It's another thing when you're able to back stuff up with sources. And just like I did, actually, yeah, it's up here. Yeah, here's another one. Here's some bonus content. Like, this was another way that you can use facts to really get under someone. So this is talking about like, she's trying to belittle conservatives again. Texas, on the other hand, is just filled with liars, pro-slavery, ne'er-do-wells, and religious pedophiles and tyrants. I've lived there too while serving in the army. The men are fatter and lazy. They have two types of women: Irish, Hungarian, Mexican immigrants, stock, or Barbie. Um, and then I say, you might want to look at the exit polls. Republicans earn significantly more money than Democrats, according to the 2016 results. And then she says, oh, the top 1%'s Republican. That's where corruption comes in. Doctors, scientists, chemists, physicists, producers, writers, actors, entrepreneurs, and show people are the top earners that do not inherit wealth. They are all liberal. The furthest right they go is libertarian. And then I say, got news for you. Not everybody over 50K a year is a CEO. And so, that was just me pointing out, like, it's not just the 1% that's Republican. Not 1% dirt poor. In fact, dirt poor people vote overwhelming Republican. And this is where she just had to go incredibly on the defense. So she tries to assume that I strawmanned her by telling your CEO. And so, I'm not going to have it. So I respond with what I did there. And then this is where name calling was. And, we've already went over that. And, this is my response to her here, like, pointing out the segregation in Chicago. And see, you know, I didn't want this to be as long as it was, I guess, but basically, what this is, it's showing you how to go on offense effectively to impact somebody's mind, prevent them from being dismissive of you, and preventing them from winning the conversation, taking the moral high ground, and all that. And it's like I said, the key is always be on offense. That's usually the key to debate. If you're in an honest debate, I think it's less important because when you're in an honest debate, it's about learning, right? You're exchanging what you know and taking in what somebody else knows, and there's a lot of give and take because you're both being honest with each other. You both genuinely care about each other and you're cordial with each other and you're open to learning new things. I always believe that the best debates have no winner because the best debates are debates with genuine exchanges of information between people with polar opposite ideas who are able to use that give and take and change their own positions, both parties, based on that. But when you're debating people like this, you can't do that. You can't assume. Even if the person is good in real life, most people are just regular folks. They have their own worries. It's like, God put in us the ability for all of us to do good. But when you're debating out in the open like this and you encounter people like this, if you don't go on the offense, you're not going to convince them of anything because their goal is not to learn from you, but to smear you. And your goal in any conversation like that with a liberal who is trying to smear, who is trying to upstage, who's trying to spread a narrative, using you as a platform or using their own platform to try to upstage who they figure is a nobody, you cannot go on defense. You have to be on offense or you're going to lose that exchange and you're going to be counterproductive to the point you're trying to prove. And this is how you force people into intellectual debates. Like with her, it kind of worked the opposite. It started cordial, but just the idea extremes are too extreme and that often devolves. But a lot of conversations you can get to go the opposite direction where you start off going on offense, you hit them hard, and then when you hit them hard, you force them into a defensive position where they're forced to try to use facts and sources. And when you use facts and sources and you're a conservative, as long as you understand what your facts and sources are, you know your material, you know your content, you're going to win that discussion every time. Or I should say 90% of the time. Like, if you're going against the far left winger, you're going to win that discussion of facts if you have them. But you have to get to that point. You have to earn that point, that kind of respect, by showing, yeah, if you're going to smear my character ad hominem me and try to use me to project conservatives in a negative light, I got something for you. I can go on offense too. There's plenty wrong with your ideology, with your cities. There's plenty of weak points with your side. Here they are. And now I'm going to force you to defend yourself. Or I'm just going, in the very least, I'm not going to lose the exchange because I can pump out as much as you can. And if you get good at it, you can actually do a lot more. Anyhow, um, that's the lesson. People like Roseanne, people like any conservative, whether it be Milo Yiannopoulos, although I don't think he ever apologized, whether it be Tucker Carlson, excuse me, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, you can't rely on these apologies. You just can't do it. It does not work. It may have worked at a time before, but it does not work in this day. You're going to get eaten alive because an apology, it's not good. It's never good enough. Never good enough. And that's the whole point. It's never good enough. So you either go on the offense or you get trampled over. And I say that about everybody, including people who are threatened by their advertisers. Like, you die on your sword. You live on your sword, you die on your sword. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is people are going to understand they can intimidate you, and then you're going to lose your sword altogether. Because you're going to be so restricted in your ability to do anything. So, like Laura Ingraham, all that, like, don't ever go on the defense. And this is something that should be learned from Trump, because Trump is one of the few that understands this. Even when he is super harshly criticized, he never goes on defense. And that's how he beat Republicans, and that's how he won the election. He constantly was on the attack. Even when the attacks were not particularly effective, it was something. It was a greater contribution than if you went on the defense. And that's the one thing Trump does understand. He understands how to go on the attack. And if Republicans, if you guys want to start winning consistently, you got to stop being cowards. And again, this whole theme, stay on the offense. Force the narrative, claim the moral high ground, and force them to take it from you. Or if they're trying to claim it, you do not give them a free pass at it. Fight them at all costs. Thanks for listening. God bless.